Hi, my name's Isaac. And this is the all-new 2025 Subaru WRX TS. And today, I'm gonna review it for you guys. The TS is all new for 2025, and it's now the top trim for the WRX. It's sort of meant to be a replacement for the STI, but not entirely. It's kind of a compromise. Let's go back in time. In early 2022, Subaru announced the legendary STI trim would not be carrying over into the next generation of the WRX. Subaru did say there could potentially be a hybrid or electric version of the STI coming in the future, but for the time being, the gas engine just wasn't viable with emissions laws tightening. So to continue competing in the performance car segment, Subaru brought back the TR, or Tuner Ready nameplate for 2024, but that was very short-lived as it's been replaced this year by the TS. TS stands for Tuned by STI. I suppose TBS was already taken. Subaru Technica tuned the suspension here on the TS, but they didn't touch anything on the engine. It's the same as the base model, which is disappointing, though the 2.4-liter turbo Boxer 4-cylinder still outputs decent numbers at 271 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. It's no Civic Type R when it comes to power output, but it's still undoubtedly quick off the line. And that engine is paired to a 6-speed manual transmission, which is the only option on the TS. No automatic here, which is a welcome exclusion in my book. The EPA estimates the WRX TS gets 19 city and 26 highway, and in my testing of both city and highway driving, I averaged a pleasantly surprising 27.1 miles per gallon. The TS also offers Brembo brakes and some nice interior goodies we'll talk about in a bit. Man, I wish this had a big spoiler though. This is about as much of a spoiler as Darth Vader being Luke's father. Yeah, everybody already knows that, so this little guy ain't spoiling much. Alright, now let's talk about exterior features and the styling here on the WRX. Starting here with the headlights, you'll get full LEDs with LED daytime running lights, and those are not actually flashing in real life, that's just a camera refresh rate issue. Then you'll have LED fog lights, and moving up into the grille, you'll have your WRX badge right there. And then this is a functional hood scoop, as are all of the scoops and vents on this car. No phony trickery to be seen. Now, as we move to the profile, this has been by far the most divisive issue with this car. Some people don't mind it and some people hate it. The black plastic body cladding on the lower portion. Previous incarnations of the WRX did not have this, and when they unveiled this car, a lot of people were like, and look, that was me too. I thought this was the ugliest looking car when they first unveiled it. But over time, I've begun to appreciate it more, and now I honestly think it's a pretty sharp looking car. And I know there's still people out there that are gonna be like, "You what?" But I mean it. I think this is a good looking car, and I like the body cladding. I think it works, especially for a vehicle with a history of rally racing, you know, to protect from rock chips and stuff like that. If you're really gonna take this off-road, I would think that body cladding actually assists more than it hinders. Yes, visually it might not be the same design as the previous WRXs, but it makes sense to me, at least, why they would put it here. It makes more sense than most of the SUVs that have this body cladding all of the sudden. Like, why does this need the black plastic fender flares? Who's ever gonna take this thing off the pavement? Well, I guess according to Google Images, I am. Continuing on to the wheels, I absolutely love the design of these 19-inch wheels, and you're gonna get 245 35R tires, And then you'll have gold Brembos, which additionally add to the cool style factor on this car. Then up here you'll have black plastic mirror caps with turn signal indicators. They have heating incorporated into them. They are power adjusting, and blind spot monitoring is also incorporated. You also get keyless entry. And then as we continue to the back here, you'll get your TS badge, your WRX badge, Subaru and all-wheel drive badges, and I really like the design of this tail light. Like, the kind of crystally look of it is sweet. I think it's awesome. And then you'll get quad exhaust. Let's take a listen to how that sounds. Man, doesn't that just sound fantastic? And then you'll have a backup camera right here and the itsy bitsy spoiler on the back. Look, I understand this isn't an STI model, so it makes sense that it doesn't have the full STI wing. But if Subaru really wants this to be unique and competitive and stand out in the performance car market, well, I think they could have put a wing on it. And for the record, I am incredibly proud of the title of this video. I think it's my best dad joke pun work in recent memory. I'm not anywhere close to being a father, but if I'm ever blessed with the ability to be a father someday, I think I'll be a pretty good one based on my batting average of these terrible jokes. Anyway, lastly, before we move to the interior, I want to talk about the key fob quickly. You'll get lock. Unlock is actually your Subaru logo right here, which is funny. And then you'll have the ability to pop the trunk here. And then moving inside quickly, there is a good deal of space for how small this car is, so you could definitely store quite a bit back here. Moving to the very blue interior of this WRX TS, I think it's funny because about a year ago I was reviewing a Ford Maverick that had a blue interior, and in that video I talked about how blue interiors were more common on cars in the 1970s and the 80s, but you don't really see blue interiors nowadays. Well, I stand corrected because this is a very blue interior, and I know the new Tacoma also has an option for a blue interior, so I suppose it's making a comeback. And I actually think it really works here. It contrasts nicely with the white exterior color, and it adds some additional flair and pop to this car that I think is really special. Speaking of special, the Recaro seats in this car are incredibly comfortable. They grip you very tightly, and interestingly, the driver's side is actually power adjusting. In a car so focused on weight savings, I would have thought both the driver and passenger would have been manually adjusting. But there you go. It does give you the option of power adjustment, though notably no lumbar support. Moving over to the door panel right here, this is soft touch. This is also soft touch down here and very blue. And this is a suede material. You get it on the seats as well, but I like how it's on the door panel and then it continues onto the dashboard over here. It adds to a more premium feeling interior as well. You'll have your window controls right here, your power mirror controls, the trunk popper, the brightness switch for the digital gauge cluster screen. We'll talk about that in a sec. Traction control off, and then you will have a manual adjustment for the steering wheel right here. And of course, you get blue accent stitching on the steering wheel. Not to belabor the blue point, of course. There's just a lot of it in here. Continuing on, you'll get your controls for volume, Bluetooth, channel changing, and then your radar guided cruise control settings over here. And then this is your drive mode selector right here. That will pop up on the gauge cluster screen as you shift between modes right there. It will also pop up on this screen over here on your infotainment, and that will give you the option in individual mode to actually customize what you want your suspension to be, your steering to feel like, and it really does make a difference. Sport steering is more firm than comfort. This is a little bit looser of a steering feel, and it adjusts just like that. So that is a really neat addition. I do wish there was a little bit more customization there, but it's nice to have that at all. And then you'll have some buttons down here. These control your digital gauge cluster screen. You can pick between what you'd like displayed on the bottom corner of the screen. And then if you hold the center button, you can actually change the entire layout of the screen. You can pull up maps. There's a comm screen here. I personally like this screen with the STI badged gauge. You'll also get an STI badged start-stop button as well. Now, moving to the infotainment screen, this is where I have my biggest grievance with this car. There's one personal thing that I have against the infotainment screen, and then one practical thing that I have against this infotainment screen. So for starters, the personal thing is that the majority of the climate controls are on the screen here. You have to adjust them from the screen, and I just don't like that on any car. A lot of manufacturers are doing that nowadays, and I'd prefer to just have physical climate buttons. Now, you do get a couple physical climate controls here. As you can see, you do have buttons for your temperature control and then the auto defrost in the front and the rear, which is nice. Those are like buttons you can just jump to, and frankly, probably the buttons you're going to use the most. But if I want to change the direction of where the air is coming out, I have to tap this, and then I have to navigate around to like, oh, I want to do here, I want to do here. And that's going to take my eyes off the road because I'm not getting physical buttons that I'm pressing. I have to navigate through a screen, and I just don't think that that's safe. I always mention this in videos. I'm just not a fan of that, and I don't think it's justifiable in any of these cars. And so, not just an issue I have with Subaru, but it's kind of across the board. So that's my personal grievance with this screen. My practical one is that this infotainment screen is pretty laggy. It definitely does get going eventually, but when you're jumping between screens, as you can see right there, there's an example. It just really takes a second to get going, and you'd think by now we'd have technology to really make lightning fast infotainment screens. And some of the competition does have faster, more intuitive screens, but here on the Subaru, it takes a little while to get into certain menus, and that's disappointing. You'd think for a screen this size, it would be a little quicker on the draw, especially since it's handling so many tasks. You have the radio infotainment stuff, but you also have the climate controls down here as well. I like the concept. It gives you the option to put certain displays up here so you can kind of split what you want to see throughout the screen, but I just don't think the execution lands as well as Subaru was probably hoping that it would. Now, putting my foot on the brake and throwing this thing into reverse, it does have a backup camera with guiding lines that turn on the car. It's a pretty decent camera, and I wouldn't expect a 360 surround view system on this. Most of the competition doesn't have it either, and it's not really a car that needs it. So I'm just thankful it does have a backup camera here, and it's a pretty good quality one at that. Moving further down here, you'll have a 12 volt, a USB-C, USB-A, and an auxiliary jack. It's nice to see that. Subaru recently has been throwing in a lot of retro stuff on their cars. Might be the fact that they just never got rid of them on previous models and just carried them over. But I recently did a Subaru Outback, and that was a 2025 model with a CD player. Now, I'm all for CD players, but it's just very rare to see them on cars nowadays. So I was glad to see that that model had it. Continuing on, this has a physical parking brake, which I am always a fan of. Now that was obviously a professional driver on a closed course, and I would never plan to do anything like that, But I also just like that a physical parking brake gives me a little bit more assurance than an electronic one personally. Continuing on, you'll have two cup holders right there, and then you'll have a little storage area right here in the center with a 12 volt. Last but not least, I just want to talk about the roof. You're not going to get a sunroof on the TS. That's a weight savings thing specifically for this car. So there is an option for a sunroof on the GT trim, but you don't get it here. Moving to the rear seats, the blue continues back here quite prevalently, and you do get a decent amount of legroom. So I have this seat positioned where I'd sit at 5'9", and I'd say I have maybe 4 inches of legroom and maybe an inch, inch and a half of headroom. It is tight, but again, this is a smaller vehicle, so I'm pretty forgiving in that category. Down here, you can see there's a USB and a USB-C, which is nice. And then you can fold the center armrest down, and that gives you 2 cup holders. And then in the rear here on the deck lid, you get a subwoofer. I believe this is a 10-inch from Harman & Kardon with the included sound system, and it sounds really good. I'm not a music expert. I don't do audio like detail. I'm no Savage Geese in that department. The only thing Savage Geese and I have in common is the fact that our channels are both adjective than an animal, and we both review cars for some reason. But I do think that the sound system in this car is pretty good. All right, driving the WRX TS. This is arguably the most important and interesting part of this particular video to probably the majority of the audience, because you guys want to know how it drives. What does it feel like? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? Sometimes I review a Nissan Rogue and people are like, does it get good fuel economy? And is this the one with the heated seats? And that's all they're looking for. They don't care about the driving segment. But I'm happy to report this does drive well. I've had a lot of fun with it this week, and throwing it around corners and driving on back roads, the speed limit of course, has been really, really fun. And I've had a great experience with this. Interestingly, this feels like the suspension setup is a little bit higher up than some of the other performance car competition, and so it ends up feeling a little bit more like a rally car, which makes sense with Subaru's history in this, than some of the other cars in the segment. You know, they're a little bit more low slung, and I'm sure you could lower the suspension on this if you wanted it, but it does feel like it's a little higher up. And that doesn't change the fun factor for this car, but it is a little bit of a different driving experience than I was expecting this to have. And it really does handle corners well. The acceleration is really nice. It might have less horsepower than the Civic Type R, but man, this thing gets up to speed really, really quickly. And shifting gears is incredibly smooth and fun. I absolutely love it. Look at me. I'm so happy. I absolutely love driving this thing. It's very comfortable. The suspension setup, while I've said is a little high, it is very comfortable as well. I think the tuning that STI did on this car is good. I just wish that they had done more. Like this was a full STI model with a little bit more customization and a little bit more specific tuning and a wing. I do wish it had a wing. And I say all that because the performance car segment is so competitive, and any manufacturer can do to make their performance car stand out really helps. And I just don't think that the TS stands out in the crowd as much as some of the competition. It's a good car, undoubtedly, but I think it really would have benefited the entire STI treatment. And I know Subaru has said, oh, well, we just haven't done that because of EPA regulations and stuff like that, but I have to imagine they could have gotten 20 or 30 more horsepower out of the turbocharged 4-cylinder, like, again, some of the competition has, and being able to throw a wing on the back and some other specialized features doesn't seem like it would have been too much to ask for, but you don't get it here. And it's not a disappointing car. It does everything that it sets out to do, but it just doesn't feel like a top trim to me.
I really hope you guys
feels
enjoyed.
Like the
you
one
can see I'm pretty sniffly, about halfway in.
I think the overall point that I'd like to convey is it's fun, but it's not the STI. And as long as you go in knowing that, I don't think you'll be disappointed in the WRX TS.
We'll get through it. I'm sure we'll be fine. Oh, the toils of being an automotive journalist. But anyway, before I go, I wanted to mention that I'm a Christian, and if you have any prayer requests, I would love to be able to pray for you guys. You can leave those in the comment section below. And lastly, I like to close out with a scriptural reading with all of my videos. I just really enjoy doing this, and I hope that this is encouraging for you guys as well. This week, I'm in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. And remember, no matter what vehicle you have, I hope it lasts you a long time and it serves you well. Take care.